The sunlight broke through the horizon, casting an ethereal glow over the sprawling ranch. Birds chirped in the distance, unaware of the storm brewing within Sarah. She stood in the dusty barn, breathless, staring at the majestic chestnut figure before her. Jake, her spirited mare, seemed to radiate warmth, but today Sarah felt anything but safe. A tremor of anxiety coursed through her, an unsettling premonition of the days to come. What if I can't do it? Sarah whispered, her voice barely more than a breathy sigh. She felt ridiculous speaking aloud to her horse, but there was something comforting in Jake's understanding gaze. The mare's large, brown eyes seemed to mirror Sarah's turmoil, an unspoken promise of loyalty and resilience. What if everything goes wrong? The words hung in the air between them, heavy with the weight of fear and possibility. As if sensing her distress, Jake took a slow step forward, nuzzling Sarah's shoulder with her soft nose. It was an acknowledgement, a reminder of their bond so strong that it transcended words. Sarah took a deep breath, feeling the warmth of the mare's body against her skin. In moments like these, the world outside faded away, leaving just the two of them, a rider and her horse, tethered by shared dreams and silent fears. Today marked the eve of the local riding competition. Sarah had been preparing for this moment. For months, diligently training with Jake, pushing both their limits and nurturing their connection, but something felt off. Doubts gnawed at her like a hungry predator stalking its prey. She brushed her fingers through Jake's mane, feeling the silky strands slip between her fingers like time itself. "We've practiced so hard," she murmured, her voice trembling. "What if it's not enough?" Jake stomped a hoof impatiently as if to say, "Enough with the doubts, Sarah. We have each other." The mare was fierce yet gentle, embodying the very spirit of a warrior. Sarah had watched her leap over obstacles with grace and power, the two of them moving in harmony like a dance that only they could perform. Their hearts beat as one, an unbreakable rhythm that echoed through time. Suddenly, a sharp noise broke Sarah from her reverie. The sound of clattering hooves outside caught her attention. It was Emma, her best friend and fellow competitor. "Hey, Sarah! You ready for this?" Emma called, her voice filled with excitement and confidence. Sarah could hear the determination in her toniest stark contrast to her own inner turmoil. "Sure. Just, getting Jake all set," Sarah replied, her throat tight. How could she admit to Emma that she felt like a bundle of nerves, spiraling downward into a whirlwind of anxiety? Emma trotted up, a radiant smile illuminating her face. "You've got this. Just remember all the hard work we've put in. You and Jake are a force to be reckoned with." Her unwavering belief sparked a flicker of strength within Sarah, but the flicker felt weak and distant. The two friends spent the next hour preparing for the big day. As they groomed their horses, Sarah watched the way Emma interacted with her own horse, a striking black stallion named Midnight. Their bond was vivid and undeniable, a symphony of understanding that made Sarah yearn for a similar clarity. "You know," Emma said while brushing Midnight, "it's normal to feel a little nervous. Just embrace it. Use that energy and let it fuel you." Sarah nodded, but the weight on her chest felt heavier, an anchor threatening to drag her down. Finally, they led their horses out into the sun-drenched arena for a final practice run. The ground felt solid beneath Sarah's feet, yet her heart raced with every step. "Let's show everyone what we've got." Emma cheered, her enthusiasm infectious. As they mounted their horses, Sarah felt a rush of adrenaline flood her system. This was what she loved, the wind in her hair, the earth beneath her, and her bond with Jake. But then the doubts clawed back to the surface, whispering insidiously in her mind, "What if you fail? What if you fall?" Taking a deep breath, Sarah looked at Jake, who seemed to be waiting patiently, as if to say, "I'm here. We are in this together." With a small smile, Sarah pushed her fears aside, focusing instead on the mare beneath her. "Okay, girl, let's do this." With a gentle squeeze of her legs, they surged forward, galloping across the arena. The world around them blurred as they became one, a single entity moving in perfect harmony. The ground shook slightly beneath their hooves, but the rhythm of their hearts drowned out the noise of the crowd. Clarity washed over Sarah as they cleared the jumps, soaring as if flying through the air. But as the practice session came to an end, a sudden and unexpected tremor rippled through the ground. Sarah's heart dropped as her confidence wavered. "What was that?" she gasped, gripping the reins tighter as panic flooded her veins. The horses shifted under their riders, sensing something amiss. Jake snorted, glancing around nervously. "It's okay, girl, it's just a little shake." But the truth was, Sarah wasn't sure what had just happened. Her stomach churned with uncertainty, and she felt a flash of fear seize her heart. "Did you feel that?" Emma asked, her voice filled with concern. "Yeah," Sarah admitted, her voice shaky. "What if it's a bad omen?" The words felt heavy, almost sacrilegious. Emma shot her a reassuring smile, but Sarah could see the uncertainty in her friend's eyes. "It's just your nerves. Don't let it get to you, okay? We'll be ready." "That's what matters," Emma replied. But Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to change, that they were standing on the precipice of something significant. As they dismounted, Sarah's heart raced. She watched as people began to gather for the competition tomorrow, each one adding to the sense of anticipation in the air. But beneath the surface, an undercurrent of dread began to form. And as Sarah walked Jake back to their stall, she whispered softly to the mare, "Promise me, no matter what happens tomorrow, we'll stick together?" Jake nickered gently, nuzzling her once more, offering a silent oath of loyalty that went beyond words. But that night, as Sarah lay in bed, her mind raced with thoughts of the competition. The ground might have shaken underfoot, but her heart was shaking for an entirely different reason. No amount of training could prepare her for the emotions that lay ahead. She closed her eyes, and hope mingled with fear, imagining her and Jake, side by side, ready to face whatever challenges awaited them on the horizon. The challenge's sun crusted over the horizon, illuminating the arena with a soft, golden glow. Sarah woke late that morning, the tension from yesterday still coiled tightly within her. She threw the covers aside and sat up, letting the warmth of the sunlight seep into her skin. Today was the day. It had finally arrived. The anticipation pulsed in her veins, mixing with the tide of anxiety that threatened to overcome her. Sarah hurried to the barn, her heart racing with both excitement and dread. The events of the previous day still haunted her, the memory of the ground shaking beneath their feet, whispering cautionary tales into her ear. She pushed those thoughts aside, focusing on the crunch of gravel beneath her boots and the soft whinny of Jake as she approached. The mare stood in her stall, her coat gleaming in the morning light, seemingly ready to take on the world. "Today's the day, girl," Sarah said, her voice firmer than she felt. She reached out, running her hands over Jake's powerful neck, drawing strength from the familiar warmth. Jake turned her head, nudging Sarah gently, and for a moment all the worries slipped away. Here, in this space, they were a team, and nothing else mattered. After grooming Jake meticulously, she slipped the bright red saddle on, adjusting it with practiced precision. Emma arrived a few moments later, her usual buoyant energy radiating like the sunlight streaming into the barn. "Hey, superstar," Emma exclaimed, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "You ready to show everyone what you've got?" The question sent a shiver down Sarah's spine. "I think so. I hope so." The uncertainty returned, a shadow lurking just beneath the surface. Emma chuckled. "Nerves are good. They mean you care. Let's warm up before the event starts." With those words, they led their horses out, the nervous energy palpable as they approached the arena gates. As Sarah sat tall in the saddle, she noticed the swelling crowd. Families, friends, horse enthusiasts all gathered to witness the day's events. Each cheer felt like a heartbeat, a rhythmic pulse that quickened her own. The sight was daunting yet exhilarating. "We're not just here to compete," Emma said, breaking the silence. "We're here to celebrate what we love." "Right," Sarah responded, trying to convince herself. As if to counter her doubts, Jake snorted and danced slightly beneath her. As if sensing her unease, they began their warm-up routine, and with each jump, Sarah felt something shift. The bond between them tightened, melding anxiety into determination. Jake responded to her every cue with precision, their communication seamless as they practiced the various jumps set up in the arena. But then, a shadow fell over her concentration. A familiar figure was watching from the sidelines. Lucas, a confident rider with a reputation for being both excellent and intimidating. He was known for his impressive maneuvers and aloof demeanor, but it was the way he smirked at the competitors that had always bothered her. Today was no different. He leaned against a fence post, arms crossed, a disarming smile playing on his lips as he caught her eye. "Looking good, Sarah." "Just don't fall," he called out, the comment laced with playful mockery that sliced through her focus like a Sharp knife. Sarah felt heat rise to her cheeks. She struggled to maintain her composure, forcing a smile that felt more like a grimace. Lucas's taunts lingered in the back of her mind, igniting a flicker of self-doubt. Jake seemed to sense the shift in energy, snorting impatiently. "Hey, don't let him get to you," Emma said quietly, noticing Sarah's change in demeanor. "You know what you and Jake can do. Focus on that, not him." Gritting her teeth, Sarah took a deep breath. "You're right. Let's not allow him to ruin this." The murmurs of the crowd grew louder as the announcer called for the first heats. Sarah's heart raced, fear mixing with the adrenaline coursing through her. They walked Jake around the arena, reconvening with fellow competitors who were equally stricken by nerves. Sarah noticed the undercurrents of excitement and anxiety flowing through the group. Everyone had prepared for this moment, each in their own way, and she felt a pang of solidarity among them. Then came the moment of truth. The announcer called out her name, prompting Emma to squeeze her hand tightly. "You've got this. Remember, trust in Jake. You two are unstoppable." As she headed toward the starting line, a wave of uncertainty washed over her, mingling with hope. With a gentle squeeze of her legs, she urged Jake forward. They took their first jump, and for a moment, the world hushed. They soared gracefully over the obstacle, and a triumphant cheer from the crowd flooded her with warmth. But the joy was short-lived. On the next jump, as they approached the barrier, Sarah felt a sudden tremor beneath Jakia's subtle vibration that made her heart skip. A beat. She squeezed tighter, trying to regain control, but doubt gnawed at her. "Focus, focus," she whispered fiercely to herself. Just as they cleared the second hurdle, she caught Lucas's gaze again. He folded his arms, watching her intently. Was he hoping she would fall? The thought sent a shiver of defiance through her. Sarah rallied her energy as they approached the more challenging obstacles ahead, determination flickering like a flame within her chest. With each jump, she felt the adrenaline surge, the bond strengthening between her and Jake. Just as they cleared another hurdle, memories of their training flooded her late nights, early mornings, and an unwavering commitment to one another. Then came the biggest jump, a towering barrier that had been a source of anxiety throughout their training. Sarah's heart raced as they approached, her pulse pounding in her ears. "We can do this, Jake, together," she called, channeling all her hope into her voice. But seconds before they leapt, the ground shook once again. The tremor felt more intense this time, almost as if the earth itself was alive, threatening to disrupt their course. "No, not now." Panic surged within Sarah. "Whoa!" she shouted, feeling Jake falter beneath her, but just as quickly Jake responded, leaping with powerful grace that seemed to defy time itself. They cleared the jump effortlessly, but the sudden jolt of fear still lingered in Sarah's heart. As they landed, she felt Jake's muscles quivering beneath her, a reflection of the unease coursing through them both. Yet the thrill of the jump ignited something deep within Sarah. They were still in the race. "We did it, yes," she cried, the adrenaline pulsing in her veins. A kaleidoscope of emotions swirling around her, they powered through the next few jumps, and with every leap, Sarah felt herself reclaiming her confidence. The crowd erupted into cheers, and for a fleeting moment, she felt invincible. Lucas's smirk faded into the background, overshadowed by the exhilarating support of the audience. But as they approached the final jump, the ground quaked once more. This time it was more intense, making Jake skitter slightly. Sarah's heart sank, but she gripped the reins tighter. "Not now," she urged, her voice steadying. The crowd's cheers morphed into gasps, a wave of collective concern washing over them. Fear clawed at the edges of her mind, making her doubt herself once again. But as they soared over the final barrier, time seemed to stand still, and Sarah's heart soared in tandem with Jake's powerful leap. They landed solidly, and in that instant, everything else faded away. The crowd, the anxiety, the shaking ground. It was just her and Jake, a unified force moving forward. With one final burst of energy, they galloped toward the finish line, the crowd roaring in approval. Sarah could hardly breathe, a culmination of fear and exhilaration intertwining like a whirlwind. As they crossed the finish line, triumphant cheers erupted, echoing in her ears, filling the void of uncertainty that had once engulfed her. Breathless and elated, Sarah pulled Jake to a stop, her heart racing with joy and disbelief. They had done it. They had faced the storms of doubt and emerged victorious together. And as she looked out into the cheering crowd, she realized that while the ground may have shaken, their bond stood stronger than ever. The fall, the exhilarating roar of the crowd enveloped Sarah like a warm embrace as she dismounted Jake, still riding the high of their performance. She could barely contain her excitement as adrenaline coursed through her veins like lightning. Emma rushed over, her eyes alight with pride. "You did it! You both were incredible. That last jump was epic," Emma exclaimed, her voice barely holding back the thrill of the moment. "Thanks. I can't believe we pulled it off," Sarah replied, a laugh escaping her lips. She felt like she was floating, the enormity of the day momentarily overshadowing any lingering doubts she had. She patted Jake affectionately, who was still breathing heavily, her powerful chestnut form glistening in the afternoon sun. But just as Sarah began to relax into the joy of the moment, a shiver snaked down her spine. The ground trembled again, though this time it felt more pronounced, like a warning rumble echoing from deep within the earth. The excitement in the air wavered and all eyes turned nervously toward the horizon. "Did you feel that?" Emma asked, her brow furrowing as she glanced around, her cheerful demeanor replaced by concern. "Yeah," Sarah replied, unease creeping into her voice. "What's going on?" She studied Jake, sensing the Mari's own tension as she shifted. Nervously beneath her, moments later, the announcer's voice boomed over the loudspeakers. "Ladies and gentlemen, we will now take a brief intermission as we assess the ground conditions." A wave of whispered chatter swept through the crowd. Sarah exchanged worried glances with Emma. Something was off. The ground was rumbling again. And the feeling of foreboding intensified as they waited. Sarah watched Lucas from the corner of her eye. He stood over by the fence, arms crossed, a smirk playing on his lips once more. This is going to be a disaster, she thought her stomach nodding. What did he know that she didn't? Let's go check on Jake, Emma suggested, reaching for the reins. Sarah nodded, eager to find comfort in her horse's familiar presence. They made their way to the stables, the ground beneath them trembling ever so slightly as if the earth itself was holding its breath. Once inside the barn, Sarah brushed her fingers through Jake's mane, seeking solace in her Mara's warmth. "You okay, girl?" she murmured, feeling the knot in her stomach tighten. Jake turned her gentle eyes towards Sarah, filling her with a sense of calm. "Something doesn't feel right." "I can't shake this feeling," Sarah admitted to Emma, who was busy checking the Mare's hooves. "I know what you mean. It's like the ground is anxious," Emma replied, chewing her lower lip. "But we've worked too hard to let a little shudder freak us out." "Right," Sarah said, nodding, though uneasy thoughts still plagued her mind. "We need to stay focused." They finished grooming Jake, but an unshakable tension hung in the air, thick and suffocating. They walked back outside to find the announcer signaling that the competition was set to resume. As participants lined up, the atmosphere shifted again. The crowd buzzed with palpable energy, but it was mixed with a layer of anxiety. Up next, we have Sarah Thompson and her horse Jake, the announcer called out. The cheering felt muted, as if the crowd sensed the underlying unease too as she and Jake took their place in the arena once more. Sarah's heart began to race the effusion of excitement and trepidation. This was her moment, yet a nagging doubt remained, whispering warnings into her mind. What if something goes wrong? What if you're not prepared? Then they were off, solid ground beneath them as they moved through the course. Each jump brought Sarah a jolt of adrenaline, and they soared over the obstacles with ease. The crowd roared approval, filling her with a sense of purpose. But with each jump, the ground shook again, a rhythm that matched her pulse. This can't be normal, she thought, glancing down at the earth beneath Jake's hooves. Coming up to a particularly high jump, Sarah felt an instinctive shift in her focus. She squeezed her legs, urging Jake forward. Just as they approached the jump, there was a deeper rumble and the ground quaked violently. Jake stumbled, her legs faltering as Sarah felt herself being thrown forward. "Whoa, Jake!" she shouted, desperately trying to regain her balance, but it was too late. As they leapt, Jake's front hooves slipped on the uneven ground, and Sarah felt herself being launched into the air. Time slowed down as she flew through the air, the world spinning around her. The ground rushed up to meet her, and she braced for impact, the shock wave of the ground beneath sending a jolt through her. Body everything went dark for a fleeting moment. Then the intensity of sound returned, muffled and distant. She blinked, disoriented, the edges of her vision blurring into focus. Groans filled the air, panic echoing as a murmur spread through the crowd. Sarah could barely make sense of what was happening. Was she still in the arena? Sarah? A familiar voice broke through the fog. Emma appeared above her, frantic. Stay still. Don't move. Sarah winced, trying to shift, but pain radiated from her shoulder and side. What happened? She croaked, each word a struggle as adrenaline coursed through her. You fell. And Jake? Emma swallowed hard, emotion cracking her voice. She's... Okay, but get Jake. Is she hurt? Panic twisted in Sarah's stomach as she attempted to sit up. Just stay down. We'll get you help, Emma urged, moving away briefly to fetch someone. As Sarah lay there, she could hear the crowd murmuring anxiously, a sharp contrast to the roar of applause just moments before. She felt the throbbing pain in her shoulder intensify, but beneath that pain was something deeper, a sense of horror tinged with vulnerability. She had fallen. The very embodiment of her fears had materialized. The rumble of the ground returned, this time sounding more like a warning siren echoing in her ears. She realized with dread that the earth around her was unsettled, as if it were reacting to the very chaos of their lives. A few moments later, Lucas appeared, his confident facade replaced with genuine concern. You okay? He asked, his tone surprisingly soft. I saw the whole thing. I'm fine, Sarah stammered, her voice quivering. Fine? You just got thrown off your horse. Emma returned with a medic who crouched beside Sarah, checking her over. How do you feel? Can you move your limbs? Sarah took a deep breath, testing herself. I think it's just my shoulder. I'm shaky, but I can move. Let's manage your pain first, the medic said. We're going to help you up, but take it slow. With help, they lifted her carefully. Pain shot through her shoulder as she tried to stand, but determination ignited within her. No amount of fear would keep her down. She wasn't ready to give in. Once standing, Sarah turned to Jake, who was being reassured by Emma. The Mari stood a few yards away, seemingly shaken but unharmed. Relief flooded through her when she caught sight of the familiar chestnut coat. She's okay? Sarah asked, her throat dry and tight. Just a bit rattled, but fine, Emma confirmed, stroking Jake's neck soothingly. Just then the ground shook again, stronger this time, sending waves of panic through the crowd. People began to murmur loudly, some even looking for exits in fear. No, not again, Sarah cried, her heart racing. She held onto the fence nearby, her breath quickening as she scanned the arena. What's happening? The medic focused on Sarah. Stay calm. We need to assess if this is safe to continue. But Sarah knew deep down that the ground shaking wasn't about the competition anymore. It felt like a warning, an omen that something darker was looming beneath the surface. The tremors intensified, almost synchronizing with the pounding of her heart. She glanced at Lucas, his expression now serious, and their eyes met for a brief moment that felt heavy with unspoken understanding. Something has to change, he muttered under his breath, barely audible over the rising din. Sarah nodded, a sense of urgency igniting a fire within her. She couldn't let fear dictate her actions anymore. The bond with Jake and the call of the competition were too strong. We need to get back to the barn, she said firmly. We can't stay out here. Though the medic hesitated, Sarah took another breath through the pain, fueled by a determined spirit. I'm going with Jake, and I'm not letting anything happen to her. We've trained for this, and we can't let this defeat us. With a small team assisting, they carefully made their way back to the stables. The crowd started to shift, evacuating as fear swept through them like a current. As they approached the barn, Sarah felt the ground rumble once more, but she moved forward, defying the tremors plaguing her world. Whatever challenges lay ahead, she and Jake were going to face them together. They had to. There was no turning back now. The recovery, the barn door creaked open, a familiar sound that felt like home amidst the chaos. Sarah stepped inside, cradling her injured shoulder as Emma and the medic helped her through the entryway. The sense of safety washed over her like a warm blanket, but the underlying tension still hung in the air, palpable like an electric charge. Jake stood in her stall, her large eyes filled with concern and confusion. Sarah could feel the Mari's worry echoing in her heart. The bond they shared was as strong as ever, and it fueled Sarah's determination to reconnect with Jake, to reassure them both that they would overcome this. "Let's get you both settled," Emma said gently, leading Jake closer to Sarah. "We need to check on her too." "Yeah, let's just make sure she's not hurt," Sarah replied, her heart racing. "I can't stand the thought of anything happening to her." As they tended to Jake, cleaning her hooves and checking for any abrasions, Sarah felt a surge of gratitude. Despite the fear gripping her, there was solace in the familiar routines of caring for her horse. They had always faced challenges together, and this was just another hurdle to overcome. "Luckily, she appears to be just shaken up," the medic confirmed, his tone steady. "A little rest and she'd be back to her old self in no time." Sarah let out a sigh of relief. "Thank goodness," she murmured, running her fingers through Jake's mane, feeling the soft strands sliding between her fingers. "You're my everything, girl." After tending to Jake, Sarah turned her attention back to herself. "I should probably get checked out as well. It's aching like crazy." The medic nodded, his expression serious. "I recommend a thorough examination, just to be safe. But let's take it one step at a time." As they moved to the barn's small medical area, Sarah could feel echoes of the earlier commotion still lurking in her mind. She replayed the moments leading to her fall, the ground trembling, the uncertainty of it all. It gnawed at her like a persistent itch refusing to fade. "Hey, you did great out there." "Despite everything," Emma reassured, her voice a gentle balm against Sarah's racing thoughts. "Falling doesn't define you. Look at how far you and Jake have come." "Falling feels pretty defining right now," Sarah replied, forcing a weak smile as the medic began his examination. After checking for any fractures or sprains, the medic assured her that the pain stemmed mostly from a muscular strain. "Some rest and therapy will do the trick," he said, his tone encouraging. "Your spirit seems unscathed just like your horse." The pride in her heart swelled as she thought of her bond with Jake. But even with the good news, nagging worries lingered like shadows in her mind. The trembling ground, the urgency in the air, it felt too significant to ignore Dot after the checkup. The medic suggested using some ice on her shoulder and taking a few days off from riding. "You need time to heal, and so does Jake. This is just as much about her recovery as it is yours. I can't abandon her now." "Not when we've been through so much together," Sarah insisted, her resolve firm. "Then let's focus on both of your recoveries," Emma said with a reassuring smile. "We can do some light exercises to keep her active while you heal." "Right," Sarah said, feeling a flicker of hope. "Let's do it. We'll figure this out together." Days passed, and each morning, Sarah tended to Jake with renewed determination. The barn became their sanctuary, a safe space where anxiety faded amidst the familiar sounds of whinnying and the scents of hay and leather. They shared quiet moments, standing side by side, with Jake often resting her head against Sarah, reassuring both of them through silent communication. However, as the tremors seemed to diminish, the nagging feeling that something was off persisted in the back of her mind. She began to notice unsettling things, whispers among the stable hands, glances exchanged when they thought she wasn't looking. It felt like everyone was waiting for something. One afternoon while brushing Jake in their stall, she overheard two stable hands talking outside. "You felt that one last night, right?" one said, his voice tense. "Yeah, I did. It was stronger than before." "Something's wrong, I just know it," the second replied. Sarah's heart raced. She turned to Emma, who was checking supplies nearby. "Did you hear that?" she whispered urgently. Emma looked concerned, but shook her head. "What? I didn't catch any of that." "Something is happening," Sarah insisted, her voice low, almost frantic. "I think the ground shaking is more than just an earthquake. I've got a feeling something else is going on." As the sun began to set, a murmur of unease spread through the barn. It felt as if everyone sensed an impending storm on the horizon. As night fell, Sarah paced back and forth, unable to shake the feeling of dread brewing just beneath the surface. "Okay, let's not panic," Emma said, taking a deep breath. "We need to stay focused on getting you both back to top shape. Taking time off has meant it's hard for you to feel in control. I don't feel in control. The ground is shaking and it feels wrong." Sarah's nerve frayed with anxiety, as if responding to their mounting tension. The ground trembled once more, but this time it was accompanied by a deep rumble that made the walls shudder. The lights flickered. Everyone! To the center of the barn now? Emma shouted, her voice cutting through the chaos as the stable hands rushed to help. The fear in her eyes mirrored Sarah's, and the reality slammed down around them. Chaos erupted with everyone scrambling to prepare for whatever lay ahead. Horses neighed in alarm and Jake shifted, sensing the rising panic. Sarah fought to calm the mare, whispering soothing words, but the ground shook even more fiercely, sending vibrations rippling through the dirt floor like a warning sign. Just then, Lucas burst through the door, wild-eyed with urgency. "We need to evacuate. They say it's going to get worse." The panic in the air was suffocating, and Sarah felt a burst of fear clawing at her gut. "We can't leave the horses," she cried. "We'll take them out, but we have to hurry." Lucas replied, his voice firm. Together, they moved to lead the horses outside. The ground shook again, and Sarah clung to Jake, trying to guide her through the chaos. The other horses stirred with fear, sensing their captor's urgency. "Stay calm, Jake. You got this," Sarah urged, her heart pounding alongside the tremor's dot as they led Jake through the open barn door. Anguish gripped Sarah at the thought of leaving their sanctuary. The world outside was a mix of fear and uncertainty, but she knew she couldn't abandon her beloved Mare. Outside, the sky was a tumultuous gray, dark clouds swirling ominously. Sarah's breath caught in her throat as she realized the extent of the chaos outside. Families were rushing from their homes, seeking shelter, a cloud of fear descending over everyone. "We need to get to higher ground," Lucas yelled, reaching for Sarah's arm. "Let's go, everyone. Move," Emma shouted, galvanizing the group into action. With desperation fueling them, they began moving away from the barn, racing towards a nearby hill that overlooked the farm. Sarah felt every tremor beneath her feet and in her heart, each shake a reminder of the urgency at hand. As they reached the crest of the hill, they turned to look back at the stables. The ground lurched violently, almost as if the earth was crying out. "Hold on tight," someone shouted, and just as they did, the barn trembled and started to collapse inward. "No!" Sarah screamed, leaning forward, her heart shattering. At the sight of destruction, they watched helplessly as the structures around them began to buckle, debris flying through the air. The chaos spun into motion, and Sarah gripped Jake tightly, focused on keeping her grounded and safe. Suddenly, shadows descended as the sky grew darker, warning them of the storm brewing above. Lightning streaked across the sky as thunder rumbled ominously in the distance. "Stay together," Emma called, rallying everyone to form a chain. As the wind howled, Sarah felt the fury of nature manifesting all around them. Just as they prepared to retreat further, the ground shook once more, this time even more violently, sending everyone sprawling onto the ground. "Hold on," Lucas shouted, trying to keep everyone steady as it felt as though the very earth beneath them was tearing apart. With desperation fueling her, Sarah clutched Jake tightly, whispering, "We're going to get through this. Just hold on." The barn was not the only thing that had collapsed. It was as if the very fabric of reality was fracturing around them. Fear coursed through her veins, but with every ounce of strength she had left, she focused on Jake, on their bond and unbreakable force, willing to face any storm. "No matter what happens, we stick together," Sarah exclaimed, feeling a surge of defiance against the chaos. As lightning illuminated the night sky, she raised her chin upward, facing whatever darkness lay ahead with her Mare by her side. Together, they were ready to conquer the storm, fighting against the tremors of fear that threatened to pull them apart. And in that moment, as the ground shook and the world roared, the unwavering strength of their bond became their ultimate weapon. They would rise from the rebels' path united and ready to face the journey ahead.